Around this time of year on NHD TV, there's a major theme to be discussed, which is the topic of taking a stand in history. Today in particular, we will be talking about St. Thomas More. To give some background, he was born in 1478 in London and grew up to be an accomplished philosopher, author, and lawyer. As a child, he received a fine education and later received a classical education at Oxford. He would then grow into a legendary author, influence, and eventually martyr. Now is the time to add some context to the time in which More existed. The English monarchy in the 16th century was a period called the Tudor period. This period involved the Renaissance creeping its way into England. Kings had total power and could make decisions affecting the whole nation. As previously stated, Thomas More was born in London in 1478. He was born of wealthy parents, as his father was a lawyer. He assisted as a page in the Archbishop of Canterbury's house. The Archbishop, whose name was John Morton, commented that More would become a marvelous man. Morton thought so highly of him, he nominated him for admission to Oxford. His vast number of opportunities as a child seemed to shape him into a man later in life. As a child, he attended St. Anthony's School, one of the best schools of his time. After his elementary years, he went on to receive a classical education at Oxford. There he stayed for 2 years, and then he left to be trained at Lincoln's Inn. He trained in law there for 8 years until he was called into Parliament. His fine education allowed him to write his wonderful works later in life. More's family life was extremely healthy. His parents wanted the best education for him and raised him into a fine young man. He married in 1505 and had 4 children before his wife, who was 5 years younger than him, tragically passed away. In order to make sure that his children had a mother, he remarried and carried on his regular life in a happy marriage. He had a wide group of friends and was close with members of his family. A healthy family life shows a gentle and fruitful man. Thomas More was a brilliant thinker and an excellent writer. His most famous work, Utopia, reflects his humanist views, and it exposes England to political corruption and hypocrisy in the fictitious novel. Humanism is the way of combining faith and reason, and is still taught in Catholic schools today. Thomas More's political career began as a young adult. His time at Lincoln's Inn was lengthy but worth it, as he was elected into Parliament 8 years later. This began his legacy as a man of law. He served as an undersheriff and proved to be an impartial judge and a well-trained administrator. Moving his way up in office, he managed to become the personal advisor of King Henry VIII in 1521, and then Lord Chancellor in 1529. This enabled him to dispatch court cases quickly. But then, King Henry VIII began pushing to appoint England as the supreme force over the papacy. More did not like this, and eventually resigned his office in 1532, blaming it on failing health. He continued to hold to his belief that the Pope was supreme, and refused to attend the coronation of the new queen. He was taken in and asked to take the oath of succession, which was a promise of submission to the king over the church. When More refused, he was put on trial for rejecting the English supremacy. His accomplishments just add to the sadness of his death because it was such a waste of human capability and work. After being accused of treason, he was imprisoned in the Tower for 14 months. The cell was small, and some of his best works were written on his table beside his bed. His wife and children frequently visited him in jail and begged him to accept the oath. He refused out of loyalty to the church and hoped that his actions would influence more people to take a stand. After his sentence, he was dragged to trial, bearded, and barely able to walk because he was in his cell so long. More was offered by the judges that if he took the oath now, he could be pardoned by the king. But More declined. With even more evidence coming in, a weakened Thomas More was sentenced to death on July 6. The night before his death, a letter to his daughter read, "Tomorrow, long I go to God. I never liked your manner towards me better than when you kissed me last, for I love my daughterly love, and dear Charity hath no leisure to look for worldly courtesy. Farewell, my dear child, and pray for me. His letter to his daughter is sad and shows that he puts God even over his own daughter. July 6th, at 9 o'clock a.m., he was led to the scaffolding. More seemed to have a light-hearted and more pleasant nature to his execution, even joking with the executioner and bystanders. He told a woman that was observing him that he would have made the same decision as the judge in his court case. Also, his foster daughter, Margaret Clement, was the only one of his children present, and she described how More tied the linen handkerchief over his eyes himself and removed his beard from the wooden block, joking that it had done no treason and that it should not be harmed. Finally, with the last words to the executioner, "Pick up thy spirits, man, and be not afraid to do thine office. My neck is very short. Take heed, therefore, thou not strike awry for saving thine honesty. I die the king's good servant and God's first." More's execution was an example to all of the importance of life and a model of loyalty to God. One man standing up to the king inspired more people to do the same action as he. He also inspired the Vatican's decision on religious freedom. His lasting influence modeled the faithful man, and this leads to more stands in history. In order to more deeply inspect primary sources from Thomas More, I visited the Thomas More exhibit in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, photography was not allowed, but I did gather this information and sources. First off, I viewed a piece of string from Thomas More's hair shirt. Secondly, there is a real brick taken from his house in Chelsea. Third off, we have his simple hat that is depicted in one of the paintings. Fourth, we have his sleeping hat, which was preserved inside of the museum. And finally, we have a golden crucifix used by himself. These relics help me realize what type of a person he was, his submissiveness to the Catholic faith, and his overall humanity. More was canonized on May 19th, 1935. His canonization shows how much he meant to the people of the Church through his writings and his courage for his faith. As you can see, Thomas More took a huge stand in history by refusing to take the king's oath out of loyalty to his faith. His actions had to influence more stands to authority in the name of religion. The inhumane execution of this man just showed others that the only way to get rid of their opinion was to kill them off. He was a model for others on steadfastness in faith. So one can say that he was one of the sparks that ignited the flame inside of every faithful man's heart. The flame that puts God before everyone else, even your king, even at the cost of death.